welcome to the Screen Podcast. Thanks for joining us for insight and analysis of the global film industry, brought to you by the teams of Screen International and ScreenDaily.com. I'm your host, Wendy Mitchell. I'm a contributing editor at Screen, and like everybody else, we keep out there on the summer festival circuit. We've got an episode today that's our second part of our summer festivals roundup, and this will be reports from Edinburgh, Locarno, and Sarajevo, three very different festivals, and I'm looking forward to talking to some colleagues. First up, we have frequent podcast Ben Dalton, senior reporter, UK and international. I hope people are watching on YouTube to see the debut of Ben's new haircut. So if you're just listening on audio, I think you're going to want to go to YouTube immediately.
Yeah, do not adjust your sets, everyone. It is still me, same analysis, different hair.
Yeah, well, it's you said we joke, but Ben knows I sort of did a double take when I saw him at Edinburgh opening night. I was like, oh, what? Hello. So, yes, Ben, you and I were both up in Edinburgh, and I think we will both have a lot to say. And it's actually good because I didn't run into you that much. We sat together for opening night of The Newcomer, which is a wonderful film. I'm going to probably have that in my top 10 films of the year. It is so funny, so heartfelt, charming, but a bit strange in a good way, and it was a perfect opening film for Edinburgh, don't you think, Ben?
It was just ideal. I mean, I can't think of a sort of better way, having, a Scottish film filmed in Scotland, funded through Scotland as well as through, Screen Scotland, but also the BFI in the UK, with a Scottish cast and a writer-director in Louis Paxton, who not only is from Edinburgh, but used to work at the festival. He used
to work at the Cameo Picture House, I think, where this is our opening night was. He's a gent.
Yeah. So that was all perfect. So, very, very Scottish, but also a Scottish film that we hope, and certainly universal hope, will travel internationally and, has a sort of a humour that will connect around the world. So it was really, really sort of exciting to be there in the room on the opening night. People were feeling really kind of positive for Louis and for the team. And I think it all went really, really well.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say it's a strong year for Scottish film, and the Edinburgh Festival has benefited from that. I mean, I think, Ben, we're recording this shortly after we're home. The Education of Jane Cumming that went to Berlin. It's also playing in Edinburgh, having its UK premiere there. The closing film of Edinburgh is a documentary called Belle, and it's about a singer I had never heard of, and it's kind of a tragic story, but it's a really well-made film, and that has almost like Searching for Sugar Man vibes a little bit, and that's a very Scottish production, and I think that's going to play really well as Edinburgh's closing. There would be others to mention. But Ben, this was your first time at not in the city, but at the Edinburgh International Film Festival, and I think we're going to have different perspectives because this is a festival I've been going to and caring about for 20 plus years. It's like had more festival directors than we've had prime ministers lately. It's been through lots of changes over the years. But Ben, tell me your impressions just being up there this year.
Sure. So I, as regular listeners will know, go to a lot of festivals and are found at various places around Europe and the world. But this was the first time in Edinburgh. And this is the 79th edition of the festival, but also it's sort of the third because, they had a major, major refresh after 2023 when the festival more or less had shut down the year before, and then sort of major refresh with a new edition in 2024. So this was the third edition run by, festival director Paul Ridd and festival producer Emma Boa. And for me as a first-time attendee, I still felt that freshness. It felt like a young festival. It felt like there were a lot of people doing things for the first time and, events happening for the first time. So there's kind of two sides to that. That's a really good, fresh feeling. It's good to have kind of new feeling events while still having that, Edinburgh is an old city with lots of heritage around it. So there's kind of a mix there. It also means that it's still finding its feet in some ways. As you would expect of, a 3-year-old festival as opposed to a 79-year-old one. So there's, I think the aim for a young event, if you're calling it the third one, is just to put on a successful third edition and do a fourth and just keep it going, year after year.
They certainly are, I went to that first reboot year and there were a lot of hiccups. And I think everybody at that festival knew that, including with like venues that I didn't think were appropriate for screenings. And they have ironed out. I was so happy to see just a lot of improvements. I mean, some of the things that weren't working well for me 2 years ago were like, yeah, there was a screening venue or two that I didn't think was suitable to show a film in a professional way. There was no real industry hub. We were popping around. And this year they were at the perfect cinemas. They had this amazing industry hub at the Central Hall at Tollcross. So, like, yeah, they've really come a long way in just the third edition.
Sure. And I, as a first-time attendee, didn't particularly feel significant hiccups. Any festival, there's always going to be things you could do differently, but it felt fluid, and, it felt like people knew where to go, and there was a hub for the festival. Yeah, I think it all sort of worked well.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Like I said, I was just relieved and happy to see this festival really sort of stable, for sure. And I mean, I do think, as you said, it is, if we say it's in its third year, they're probably, well, one thing, let's get the elephant out of the room. This festival, I remember being probably 18 years ago in a sort of think tank about should Edinburgh International Film Festival be in June or in August. And in June, it can kind of stand on its own and maybe get more attention for only the film stuff. But in August, it's sort of adjacent to, or in some small ways, part of the bigger Edinburgh International Festival, the Fringe. You know what? I guess I'm a Gemini, because I can really see benefits if they were to go into June. You get, much more attention just on the film festival. But being up there in August, I adore the Fringe. This town is exploding with people, but what the challenge is when a town is exploding with people is like, even like a Premier Inn, which might cost you 80 quid in another part of the year, is probably costing you 300 or 400 quid. And this, even for people who aren't paying for themselves to go up there, I mean, I think the hope is that industry will start to pay for themselves to go up there and really need to be there. And that's hard when hotel rooms are so expensive. But the flip side is they get to do all the French stuff. But it's also, even if the festival is paying for it, I mean, I feel sorry for any festival that has to pay these kind of hotel rates. I mean, that's not easy.
The Edinburgh Fringe is, by some metrics, the biggest cultural event in the world. So it is this sort of massive thing that the film festival is smaller by comparison. But I see no reason why the two things can't sort of run alongside each other and work really well. I don't think it's something the film festival should shy away from. I think they should say, well, if you're a film person, come up and see films, get involved in our industry program, but also go and see some Fringe things. But if you're part of the Fringe, you're going to see, comedy, theatre, the many different types of performance that are on. Maybe you might want to check out a film, or maybe you're an actor and you want to, come along to our Kenneth Branagh talk, or, there are so many ways. And then also, as you say, Wendy, there was so many talents there. So I did go and see a couple of Fringe things while I was there, including a couple of shows, stand-up shows by some of the cast members of the new SNL UK show. Now, they're going to be potentially, as in the American version, looking towards screen careers. That might be something they're working on. How great for them to be in town. They might get to meet, people from the BFI, or, they might get to meet agents. I know the agent of one of the, SNL UK cast members was keen for that to happen. So there are advantages. The cost, that's a particular issue, and hopefully there are ways to work within that. But I think in terms of the timing, I think it can work well.
Let's all huddle together and buy like a disused building in Leith and turn it into a hotel and make our millions, Ben. Okay, just a thought. But
Absolutely.
as I said, I adore being up there also for the French. I have to shout out one show I saw called, it's Elf Lions is the performer, is the woman on the edge. And it was one of the best things I've ever seen in any format ever in my life. And I just still am buzzing many days later off of the creativity and the performance. And I found out, I want to mention this for our listeners, I found out about that particular show. There is a service called Screen Fringe that was started, in a previous iterations, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It's headed by Michael O'Neill, and they do a sort of bespoke scouting service for if Christine Vachon is in town for the film festival and wants to know what would be a great play to check out for a young writer from Australia. Oh my gosh, Michael's going to give her a bespoke list. He gave me a list, and Elf Lions was on it. And they really help film and TV execs or who work in development, who might want to take meetings. And yeah, this is where that being in August really does help. So I will just forget about June. It's time to just embrace August. And yeah, this something like the Screen Fringe is such a valuable service. And yeah, I really encourage people to check it out. Even if they're listening now and heading up for the end of the festival season up in Edinburgh, then yeah, get in touch with Screen Fringe. It's really a worthwhile service. And we should just point out for people who are listening from Timbuktu, you know, or how should I know? Maybe they've been. Maybe there's a Timbuktu showcase at Edinburgh. This is where people like Phoebe Waller-Bridge with Fleabag were sort of discovered, and as you know, one woman show, and then that was obviously became a huge hit. Same thing with Baby Reindeer and Richard Gadd. So this is a hotbed of talent. So yeah.
Absolutely, that sounds like a worthwhile service. You know, lots of events going on. Back to
then there's another. Oh, sorry, I have to say one more. I know. I hope what you're going to talk about is this big Trainspotting night, and this is so sort of fringy. You know, I think for sure there were people who didn't feel time they had to go watch like a normal screening, but I think they would have made time for this. So tell us about this magical Trainspotting night that I did not go to.
Wendy, you're absolutely right. I'm surprised I've made it this far into the pod without mentioning Trainspotting. So this was the Trainspotting live event that the festival put on, held at the Leith Theatre, which is in the Leith district north of the city, which is where Irvine Welsh's original novel is mainly set. It's where a lot of the film was filmed. And the Leith Theatre is, you know, a key venue, but that's been through sort of regeneration, you know, and was at risk for a while, but is now in a sort of better position. And so this was held on the Friday evening, sort of, just on the second day of the festival. And it was billed as, you know, sort of commentary during a screening of the film from key cast and crew. And, you know, that's not an idea that's been done too many times before, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But when I sort of pulled up, got out my Uber and, arrived at the Leith Theatre, there was a queue of several hundred people down Ferry Road in Leith, many of them wearing orange bucket hats. And I just thought, you know, is this the right thing? But then as soon as you saw the Choose Life slogan on these hats, I thought, okay, I'm in the right place. And this sort of set the tone for an evening that really it's more like a gig, a rock gig and then occasionally a club night than a sort of typical festival screening. And so I would say, you know, for some, that's not going to be suitable for all. There are people who like to see their films in total silence, total darkness, no noise, and that's entirely fair enough. But for others, cinema can be many things, and, you know, films can be engaged with in many ways. And so, yeah, we had the first hour and 15 minutes, there was a local DJ playing, you know, I don't think actually songs from Trainspotting, but kind of the kind of thing. We had a lot of David Bowie. We had, you know, classic hits from the 70s, 80s, 90s. And like a gig, at first, there were people sort of filtering in, but it wasn't full at first. But then as it got closer to the showtime, like a gig, it filled up. And then eventually, you know, at 9:15, we had everyone coming out. So I don't know, did you see who was there?
Well, I ran in, I think, to Ewan Bremner the next day. I saw him around, but Ewan McGregor was there too. And obviously, we should give a shout out to Andrew McDonald, the producer of Trainspotting, because he is now the chair of the board of this Edinburgh Festival. He was one of the people that helped save it, you know, for this reboot 3 years ago. So he's bringing in his contacts, clearly. But yeah, tell me who else was there.
So who else? We had Andrew, Irvine Welsh, you know, writer of the original novel was there, John Hodge, the screenwriter, Cave Quinn, production designer, Rachel Fleming, costume designer, and also Kevin McKidd, who's Tommy from the cast. And hosted by Robbie Collins. So we had this sort of all-star team from the film who took the stage and then did that commentary throughout. Now, again, Robbie was sort of asking them questions at moments that were happening on screen, if they had particular memories. So you had, you know, the iconic running down Princes Street scene at the start, and Ewan Bremner telling us about how he, you know, got a stitch and wasn't as fast as Ewan McGregor. We have the, you know, famous curtains when Renton has his big overdose sort of filling the side of the screen, and Cave Quinn telling us about how they did that. And so, you know, these kind of things that mean a lot to the fans of the film, but then also this wonderful thing of, because it's such an iconic film, and we should mention this is the 30th anniversary BFI and Park Circus is doing a re-release of the, a 4K edition of the film coming out in cinemas tomorrow. So yeah, Friday the 21st. That sort of having those lines, the fans could shout them out. So it's shite being Scottish, being the loudest one, was bellowed out by an audience of ultimately 1,350. So again, this is like a big gig. And look, there are things to iron out. There are occasions when really everyone was so engrossed by the film that they almost maybe didn't want talking, but also people really got into it and, kind of engaged with it. And then afterwards we had even more DJing from Irvin himself, and then latterly from Darren Emerson of Underworld, who closed the night with Born Slippy, which of course closes the film. So look, I think this is a different way of doing things. I think other festivals, other events programmers could be looking at this, and I would recommend think carefully about which film you do it with. This will absolutely not work with all films. It needs a film that has a local connection, a particular meaning to wherever you're doing it, and also that has some way, whether it's music or particular lines that the audience can engage with, things to theme the event around, food, drink, music. But also, I think it's something that can really draw in punters. And we should say, 30th anniversary of the film, maybe even a majority of the audience there would not have been born when that film came out. And so, that brought in that young audience that, as we're hearing at the moment, are keen to come along and engage with cinema.
Yeah, I love this model. I think it was a huge success. Congrats to Edinburgh for putting this on, for pulling it off, for doing something different. Yeah, we always hear about the eventization of what we want in cinemas, and oh my gosh, this is that writ large. Ben, let's also go back to some of the industry stuff at Edinburgh, because they do have, an industry program. I was there moderating with Christine Vachon, who was in fine form, telling some hard truths about what American funders are looking for. And maybe it's not the most artsy of the sort of European films she gets pitched. She was quite funny about that. But she was there with... Also, this is a good example. Like, she was there because this is more of a festival of discovery. She was there premiering a film called Pretty Babies in the Connery competition. And it was the world premiere of the film. She was happy to be there with that film team. So yeah, that's the kind of ecosystem. They're really leaning into discovery, but then I think with discovery, you also get these established voices. They had Ken Burns there. And that was pretty fascinating. I've never heard Ken Burns speak before. He was in conversation with Dave Calhoun, one of Screen's critics. There was some good panels. We did a really fun panel about would this film get made today? And I pitched to the experts a film like Trainspotting, and they were like, yeah, you would make Trainspotting, especially because Shallow Grave had been so good. But, Claire Benz on that panel from Picture House was very honest that a film like Ratcatcher, made for maybe about $3 million back in the day, that, with inflation, that would be sort of 7 or 8 million. She was like, you would struggle to maybe get all the financing you would need from public sources. But funnily enough, we also did The Wicker Man, and which, wasn't a big hit back in the day, hardly made, any money at the box office. British Lions sort of dropped it. They didn't believe in the film so much at first. But, everybody was saying, oh God, yeah, Wicker Man, A24 and Neon would hoover that up right now. You could get even more money to make Wicker Man. So that was quite a funny and a really lively industry panel that I think brought in some insight. But what did you make of the Ben Roberts, from the CEO of the BFI? He was in conversation with Claire Benz. What did you make of that? Did he say enough? Did she push him enough?
Yeah, so Claire was on double duty for the industry program, and I thought this was a really excellent 90-minute session. So it was Claire in conversation with Ben, sort of talking with Ben about the BFI's role, where we're at right now. And I'm sort of slightly concerned that Claire's coming for my job as, investigating and reporting on things. She did a really good job of kind of interrogating Ben and his role in a polite, friendly way, and also flagging up things where they disagree. I think a lot of people in the industry, we go to a lot of events, and there are times where things can feel there's just a bit too much agreement going on and a bit too much, shaking hands. There were points such as around BFI forms that we know all filmmakers have to fill in when applying, and Claire flagged up that maybe those can be a bit restrictive at times. But also particularly around where BFI-backed films play, so their sort of cinema release. and Claire sort of put out there about the potential for them to play more in multiplex chains. But I would say full credit to Ben, who I thought really explained the BFI's position on these issues really very well, both whether it's about forms, about multiplex chains, but about other issues as well, and with good humour. And, he did say they get a lot of stick, and a lot of that is rightly so. That's part of the job of, working for a public funding board. But he also said where they'd like to see more of certain things from filmmakers, particularly around with genre films. Don't round the edges off your project. Don't try and, go for an elevated horror. If it's a horror, do a horror, really. And so I thought it was a really good session, really interesting for the industry. They both spoke really, really well. And other festivals should not be afraid of programming events where people disagree.
Yeah. No, and I thought it was really good because, Claire even introduced it by saying, I don't always agree with Ben. They're friendly, but they've had arguments over the years, and she doesn't always get the funding she applies for. And yeah, I think that was a session that, would have been useful for that UK industry, especially in the room. And that's the point of an industry program at a film festival, is to be useful for the people in the room. And I think that one was. Ben, we talked a lot about Edinburgh. I think we'll have to pause it for here, but Ben, I will be seeing you. Don't change your hair again, or I won't recognize you. But I'll be seeing you in Venice in a few weeks. And we are going to be doing some daily episodes in Venice. So I hope our listeners will tune back in for Ben's thoughts about Venice, and we'll stay in touch.
Looking forward to the Lido. Thanks very much, Wendy.
On to our next segment. But before I leave Edinburgh totally behind, I've been remiss. One of the main reasons I was up there was that I curated this year's Rising Stars Scotland for Screen, which we do in partnership with Screen Scotland. And we had a wonderful launch event for that with 10 amazing talents, including Louis Paxton, who we talked about before for The Incomer. So do take a look at that on screendaily.com. But now, moving further south, maybe even hotter climates, we're going to Locarno. Locarno's over with by the time we're talking to our European editor, Tim Dams, but we're going to hear his reflections on Locarno. So welcome back, Tim.
Thanks, Wendy.
I heard there was a heat wave. When I saw Christine Vachon in Edinburgh, she was saying she had been in Locarno, and she's like, it was hot.
It was super hot. I think it was the hottest Swiss summer on record. I'm not entirely sure, but basically a lot of shorts were worn.
Okay. Not just on screen, the shorts this year.
Not just on screen, It's funny because there's a very different atmosphere at Locarno compared to a lot of festivals. It takes place in the middle of summer. It's August. I think people, they're not as many people in the office that are bothering them. And so there is definitely a kind of shorts wearing vibe to the whole thing.
Good. And I've eaten my share of gelato in Locarno in past years at the Piazza Grande. Did you see anything in the Piazza Grande this year, Tim?
Yeah, I saw a couple of things actually. I saw the opening film, The Green Eyes, and then I saw James Gray was there presenting Paper Tiger, which was a great opportunity to catch up with, a Cannes competition film. There was a very good German film by Felix Rando, I Is Another, which is all about kind of Himmler's masseur from the Second World War.
Played by my dear friend / stalky, Klaus Bang. It was a great role for him. It was really strong.
He was great, actually. And that's one of those films you can see kind of traveling as well. It had a good reception, I think. It's very kind of slick, well-made film. And, in the Piazza Grande, they're playing in front of 8,000 people. So, it's a kind of incredible place to play a film. And you really see directors, cast get quite emotional standing in front of so many people.
It is one of the most special screening venues of any festival, or just of any non-festival around the world. It just really is pretty magical. If the weather is a nice night there, the weather's good, you get people out there, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of, it's warm. You can't imagine it happening anywhere else in the world, really. So, the Swiss, and it's in the Italian part of Switzerland, but everyone's so kind of respectful. It's a great audience. There's no interruptions, or, you can imagine a few cans of beer being chucked in the UK or something like that. But it's very, and like I said, James Gray was on stage presenting The Paper Tiger, and I think he was genuinely overwhelmed by the sight of so many people out to see his film. I couldn't quite see it because you're a little bit far away, but it almost looked like there were tears in his eyes as he was on the stage. So I think filmmakers love it. Olivia Wilde was there with the invite. She was kind of thrilled to be there as well. So yeah, I think they're leaning in more to the Piazza Grande program, and it's working for them.
Yeah, it is. What would you say about the industry activity this year? Sort of industry highlights that were on offer, or talking points, or what kinds of things were you covering?
Well, again, it takes place in the summer, so in August when a lot of people are on holiday, but actually they get quite a good industry representation there. I think they said that there were 2,000 accreditations this year. So I find it, unlike some of the bigger festivals where you're frenetically running from one place to another, there's lots to do. It's a really kind of relaxed, calm place to meet people, make friends, make good contacts, find out information. Things tend to happen much more organically. And of course, there's a kind of like great Swiss organization behind the whole thing, which makes it run like clockwork, as it were. And they've got a good conference program, Step In, which had some interesting kind of talking points. There's a good kind of development talent, or there's a lot of good development talent programs. So if you're scouting new talent at Locarno, a lot of people go for that. There's open doors, there's kind of first look, work in progress, the kind of match me, strand. So I think there's a lot of people to meet and deals to be done there, actually.
Yeah, have we heard any deals announced yet? I mean, it's, as we know, everybody's saying, even at Sundance, these deals take a few months to actually trickle in. But did you get the sense that business was being done?
I don't think there's been a swathe announced yet. There was a couple of films that were kind of picked up before the festival started. I think Oscilloscope took North America for Anne Oren's competition film Objet A. Shudder acquired the out of competition film Bloody Tennis. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there were sales coming out for Eye is Another, which is rep by Beta. Screen reviewed a couple of films very well out of there. There was Dennis Cote's Nobody's Violence, which I think is rep by Heretic, but I'm sure we'll hear about sales from that, for example. But Locarno kind of programs quite, it's known for its kind of more artistic auteur fare. It sits between.
It's kind of Rotterdam-esque in some of those.
Yeah.
Ways, I think. Yeah.
That's a good kind of analogy. And it's kind of like, it sits between Cannes and Venice on the one hand. So it's got, I think, selecting, it's makes certain choices. But actually what's really interesting is that, the films do kind of pop out of Locarno. And last year, the big talking point was a film that wasn't in competition. It was in the Cinema of the Present section. Blue Heron by Sophie Rumvari, which went on to play Toronto, San Sebastian, BFI London.
A huge talking point film, yeah.
Got a lot of deals coming out of Locarno. So it does get these kind of world premiere gems that, we will hear about in kind of months to come, actually. So, when I was there, I was talking to one streaming platform, and they said they always acquire a couple of films out of Locarno. So, stuff happens.
Yeah, you're right about that vibe in Locarno. There's quite a lot of important people who are usually there, but they're quite relaxed. Like, I remember Michael Weber from The Match Factory, who's usually somebody I say hello to for about 60 seconds at Cannes or Berlin. And, we had time to sit down for a coffee one year in Locarno. And it's, people, because of that summer vibes, you get important people, but they're relaxed, and we love that.
You can often see, them in the lake swimming.
Yes, did you swim?
I swam every morning, yeah. And, there was a bunch of people out, in various different places and stuff like that. It was so hot.
You kind of needed to swim, I guess.
You kind of needed to. It was so hot. So, yeah, at least you can cool down there.
So Tim, just to start to wrap up, I guess any sort of lasting impressions for you of like what you're going to remember from Locarno 26?
Well, I think the other thing that a lot of people really like about Locarno. It's got a very good retrospective program as well. So actually, a lot of the critics will spend a lot of time in the retrospective program. So a lot of the chat will, I mean, this year they were focusing on the kind of Hollywood blacklist films and filmmakers and people who were kind of, put on the Hollywood blacklist and weren't able to work in Hollywood. And they had a, really nice selection of films there. And so there was a lot of chat about what people had seen. And in that, they did a kind of Piazza Grande remastered, kind of a 4K restored version of Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves. It was the kind of director's cut at over 4 hours. And I think that played quite late as well. I went on to the very, very early hours of the morning. I don't know how many people were there. But, they're kind of classic films are a really nice part of Locarno, actually.
Yeah, I think outside of like Bologna, Locarno, for being like the big sort of festival that's not only retrospective titles. I mean, I think they have the best retrospectives of any festival. They really are known for that. I'm glad to hear that's going strong. I remember seeing Il Gattopardo, The Leopard, very late one night in the Piazza Grande, and I was like, oh, I forgot how long this film is. It's like 2 a.m, but sumptuous and amazing.
Yeah. And also, actually, they have good talks at the kind of Locarno for a journalist. They get good guests at the Step-In conference or at the festival itself. And there was a good chat from Marco Perego, who is Zoe Saldana's husband, who's kind of an artist who's investing and producing a lot of films at the moment. He had kind of 4 films at Cannes this year.
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading your recap of that on screendaily.com. I'll remind people they can catch up with that there.
They're pretty rare, these kind of angel investors in art house films, actually. So, people were keen to hear from him. And then they had, you may know him, Joni Sigurdsson as well. Icelandic,
my dear friend Yannis.
US, yeah. Yes. Just talking about working with David Lynch. He produces films, and David Fincher, and running Propaganda Films, this big commercials production company in the in the 80s, and their kind of heyday really of that time of running commercials production companies and spawning all these directors who kind of went on to great things and everything like that. So that was a real highlight as well.
Yeah, he's a real industry veteran who we don't get that sort of career talk from at other places. I was so happy to see that Yanni was there getting that prize and doing that talk. Like, well deserved. Tim, we're going to let you go, but we'll be pouncing on you in Venice again, from the leopard to the lion.
And it'll be hot there as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, we never know if it's going to be rainy or sweltering, so we'll pack for all eventualities. And we'll be talking to you for the pods at Venice. But thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thanks, Wendy.
We are continuing our tour of European festivals, now going to Sarajevo. And while we're speaking to her, our reporter Mona Tabbara is still in Sarajevo. She's coming to us live from the scene. Mona, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wendy.
Yes, good to have you back. What's the vibe like in Sarajevo so far this year? And I will say this festival is not done yet. There's a lot more to go. Yeah.
We're about halfway through. I would say it's my first time, and there's a real wonderful sense of occasion, and it's very celebratory. I thought I was dressing up because I didn't wear my Birkenstocks to opening night, but other people had feather headdresses on and were wearing what might be my grandma's chandelier. So there's a real, people dress up and turn out.
It's a big deal for the region.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
And I think also there's an element of, a very troubled history that this festival was born out of. So there's a real urge to celebrate, I think. It's been fun. The mood has been turbulent so far.
And I would say Jovan Marjanovic, who runs the festival, he really brings people together. He's got a lot of personality and good energy and very widely known in the industry. And I think he sets a good example for festival heads.
For sure. And he's out and about at all the events. And I also would say he seems to have a lot of very well connected great friends in the industry, because there's an amazing lineup of masterclass speakers, and every year they've got a great selection of honorary award recipients this year. I was just at a talk with Woody Harrelson earlier today, which was meant to be a masterclass, but he was drinking Irish whiskey and singing Elvis on stage. The whiskey was to do with his character in Welcome to Sarajevo. The Elvis singing, I couldn't tell you, but
sounds entertaining, if not is terribly useful for industry attendees. I don't know. We need to balance, I guess.
But it was fun. It was good fun.
We need some fun. It's a festival.
Yeah, the audience were enjoying it, and I think there were quite a lot of actors in the audience who were kind of there for the showbiz. So that was good. Pavel Pavlovsky gave a masterclass. Emily Watson's speaking tomorrow. So yeah, a really good selection of speakers.
Great. And yeah, what would you say the industry mood is? Or maybe there are going to be more panels and things in the coming days?
I think the documentary stuff has kind of had its moment, and now we're coming into more of the sort of full throttle industry program. There's a panel I'm very excited about to do with, is Europe doing enough radical stuff to help female filmmakers?
Oh, we like that topic.
We do like that topic. I'm chairing a panel tomorrow to do with, are festivals gardeners or gatekeepers? How are they helping the next generation, or are they just sort of picking their favourites and guiding them through, which I think will be interesting and kind of cool that a festival is sort of asking that question.
Which festivals do you have on the panel?
We've got Berlin, we've got Cannes Critics Week, we've got Sydney, we've got Toronto, so a good geographic spread.
And I'm somebody who's very interested in the current landscape of festivals and what we're doing for the future. So I look forward to reading your recap of that, maybe. And of course, it's a film festival. Let's talk about some films. What might people be most anticipating that is screening in Sarajevo, or things that are already started popping?
Well, this film already popped at Locarno, but You Do Not Belong Here, I think people are feeling quite excited about to see. Also 17, which did play at Berlin, which is by a filmmaker from North Macedonia, but I'm hearing good things about that. So I think nice for those films to get some spotlight, because a lot of the, I guess, sort of big hitters at the festival are, the Cannes competition films that are going on their way, which has been nice for me because I don't get to watch films at Cannes. So I've finally been able to watch, Fatherland, Sheep in a Box, a Japanese mermaid film called Titanic Ocean that I've been waiting to see for a long time. So all those Cannes films, it's kind of a nice moment for them.
Yeah, that's good. And I was just talking to Tim about how in Locarno, it's just you get these important people in town, but they're a bit more relaxed. And what I remember from, I haven't been to Sarajevo in more than 2 decades. Do not do the math. But I remember Danis Tanovic was at the bar one night playing piano for everybody. And yeah, what's the mood? And you just bump into interesting people, I guess, all day.
Yeah, I mean, the opening night, Emily Watson was just there having chats with people. It wasn't, and what surprised me, there was a VIP area, which I was not expecting. But no one really seemed to be in it, which is kind of a nice sign. I tried to go in it. I wanted to go to the toilet and was thrown out.
No, because you wanted to report on some exclusive stories. That's why we go into the VIP area. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's just kind of in the same sort of spaces. There's I would say actually, of all the festivals I've been to, this I think has some of maybe the nicest festival spaces. There's a 3,000 seater open air cinema. The National Theatre is a really beautiful building. You're doing panel sessions in a lovely garden setting. So it's a really lovely vibe. And also just walking down the street any night of the week at 11 p.m. and it's a party. It's the locals know how to enjoy themselves. But yeah, random DJ sets in the street. People seem to be bringing their own karaoke machines out to bars. It's just
That's a hard no. I'm
Yes.
sorry. If the karaoke machine is already set up for you, that is acceptable. You are not allowed to bring your own. But hey, sounds fun. And yeah, Mona, before you leave town in Sarajevo, is there a lot more you're looking forward to? I guess your panel, for one.
I'm looking forward to my panel. Yeah, there are a couple of masterclasses still to come. There's an event at the British Embassy tomorrow, which I'm imagining is going to be very posh. But I'll let you know. I've bought my glad rags for that. So yeah, lots of and it's also just a nice place just to wander around and soak up the vibes. It's a really beautiful city.
Okay. So, Mona, any other thoughts about Sarajevo 2026 and what you think you're going to remember from this year, or lasting impressions?
I think I will just remember it as a very welcoming festival, but I also have learned a few lessons, like things can be a bit more spread out here than some of the other festivals I've been to this summer. I booked a ticket for a film and didn't quite realize it was an hour away on the tram. So I've learned, that you do need to check where the venues are. It's not Galway, it's not Transylvania, not everything's around the corner. So
I mean, this is my first tip to anybody going to any festival for the first time is, oh my gosh, you got to get your bearings first. I mean, even in Edinburgh this past week, I booked a ticket for a film and then it was literally a 40-minute walk. And I just was too lazy to figure out the bus and Fringe and people. And I just ended up not going. But it's a good cautionary tale to remind people to... My other top tip is always look, if it is a festival that only has some screenings with English subtitles, you got to check which ones. I've been burnt sitting in the middle of a row before on that. Maybe not at Sarajevo. Yeah, good tip.
But yeah, no, looking forward to the rest of the week.
And what's your next trip, Mona? Are you doing Toronto?
Yeah, Toronto. My first Toronto as well, actually. So,
wow. Big year for Toronto. So we'll keep talking. But thanks for joining us, Mona. Enjoy the rest of Sarajevo and beware of the portable karaoke machine.
I will. Maybe I'll buy one.
Anyway, thanks to everybody who's tuned in to the Screen podcast. Not recorded on a karaoke machine, I'm happy to say. We're so thrilled that you join us every week for insight and analysis of the global film industry. And I want to thank everybody who came on the pod today, Ben and Tim and Mona, and also the whole team at Screen. Our pod producer, Ellie Calnan, our head of digital, Orlando Parfit. And once again, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.